Be cool, be kind, be classy. A cupcake so sweet and sexy. Have fun and enjoy the journey. Just have a good attorney. No big whoop, no biggie. She lives in New York City. And not just a YouTube show. When you know, you better grab a straw. Learn about the law. It's cool here in the shade, sipping motions of lemonade. Cool heads will prevail, kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Oh, Melanie Little is going live. Oh no, where is Melanie? Follow the island's melody. Is a concert within reach. No surprise, she's at Jones Beach. She heard some music far away. Captain Jack Stack Harbor Bay. He sings and his piano plays. Not all sounds are waterways. Speaking Yiddish or Latin, it's not just for Manhattan. It's for Goethe and Machegas. Ridiculousness that insanus. Oy vey, Marcus. Proset, that's for schmucks. Be cool, be kind, be classy. My cupcake's sweet and sassy. And not just a YouTube show. When you know, cool heads will prevail. Kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Melanie Little is going live.
Never have I ever had a stream taken down by YouTube in the middle of a live stream. Never have I ever. And here's why they did it. I'll show you the emails that I got when this happened. I was like, what? I'm sorry, what? Here's what it says. From YouTube. Hi there. We're reaching out because members of the YouTube community, including fellow creators, viewers, or staff, have expressed concern for your safety or well-being after coming across content you posted with topics related to suicide or self-harm. If you or someone you know is experiencing suicidal thinking or self-harming, know there is help and you're not alone. It's not uncommon to turn to suicidal thinking and self-harm as ways to cope with painful emotions. Talking to someone can help you process these emotions as well as get support through a difficult time. I'm sorry, what part of me talking about a current case? Ellen Greenberg was right in the title. That was the first email. And then the second email says, hold on. Never have I ever. What are we supposed to do? Just pull the plug on talking about this? Wild. Here you go. And this is why I ask you guys to be careful in the chat about what the things that you say. And I don't think it had anything to do with you at all. But hi, Melanie Little. It looks like Ellen Greenberg, Philly Emmy, releases new report. Concern. And look how I spelled this. Also, I put a 1 in there instead of an I. As manner of death, attorney review didn't follow our community guidelines. We've removed it from YouTube, like right in the middle of the stream. It's gone. I can't even edit it. What we found, we think your content violated our self-harm policy. Content that discusses or depicts suicide or self-harm in a graphic, non-promotional, and non-instructional manner may be age restricted if it's not appropriate for all audiences. I always age restrict my videos. Always. You can see an example around 29 minutes and 22 seconds. I don't even know how long that stream was going on for. Started at 10, so not 45 minutes. We use a combination of automated systems and human reviewers to detect a violation of. This is not something I don't know how to use Rumble. I don't need to do I don't need to learn a whole other platform. So I can't see it to review it because it's gone. Yeah, 0 humans involved. Exactly. And every time I say that, people, I mean, I don't think it has anything to do with the drug names, and most of my drug names are on the list, but it has, their argument is that it has to do with self-harm. I can't, Amanda, I can't do anything without the link to your channel. And if YouTube unsubscribed me, I unsubscribed you or blocked you. I don't know, but I can't deal with that right now. Yeah, of course I'm coming back because nobody's going to shut me up. Really? I can't talk about Ellen Greenberg's case being deemed a suicide instead of a homicide when it's obvious that she couldn't stab herself in the back of the neck. Like, are you kidding me? Going over court documents, everything that I do is age restricted. I didn't even show you the diagram yet. I didn't even show you the diagram. Subscribe yourself back. If you're not subscribed, subscribe yourself back. Tell me if it unsubscribed you. Hold on, I'm gonna take away the restriction right now. So you only have to be subscribed for 1 minute. So come back, and if you were unsubscribed, tell me that you were unsubscribed because this is bullshit. It's bullshit. I'm not going to learn Rumble because the majority of my audience doesn't even know what Rumble is. That doesn't make any sense for me to be on that platform. Hang on a second. Ooh, and they did me dirty on the thumbnail right now, so I got to change that. So hang on a minute. Sometimes if you don't put a thumbnail up, they like capture you, like a screen capture, and it is a pretty scary one. So don't even look at it. I'll put the Ellen Greenberg one back up and see if they strike me for that. You're like, who's going to report it? Who's going to report it? If enough people reported it, it could have only been looked at maybe by the AI, and AI made a decision. Maybe you can appeal it. Maybe because I had the S word in my title, but it wasn't even spelled right. It happened to me. I mean, like my streams have been demonetized before for being unfriendly to advertisers. Like there's a stream I did on Aaron Spencer that was unfriendly to advertisers. There was a stream, anytime I did a stream with Karen Reed where they showed the arm picture, that was demonetized. That's different than them completely removing your video and just taking it down. Hold on. So I apologize if you put a super chat up on the last stream, but I can't even see it now because the whole thing has just been removed. Journey's mom became a member. Welcome. Twice, apparently. Elf says, Grizzly, okay. It wasn't taken down. What's up with this? I don't know. Is she covering it like right now as we speak? I don't know. I have court doc. I can't answer that question, but thank you for your 5. Jamie, thanks for becoming a new member. David says, no, I can't comment now. Okay, well, so resubscribe, and 1 minute later, you'll be able to. Piss me off so early in the morning. Not you, David. Terry Sue, thanks for becoming a member. Cajon Zone, thank you. Jennifer, thank you. Stella, thank you. Kimberly, thanks for being here for 5 months. And Jenna says, still here. Let's go see No Doubt at the Sphere. Oh, no, I have no interest in seeing No Doubt at the Sphere. Like, first of all, I can't even imagine how expensive it's going to be. I know how expensive it was for Dead & Company, but No Doubt at the Sphere. Also, the Eagles are playing at the Sphere. Weird. Hold on. Kitty says you can't say the S word at all. This happened to another live streamer I know, except he did not mention the S word. YouTube still took down the video, but he was able to re-upload it. Well, I can't because it's gone. It's not even on my back end. I always put 18 plus content too. I do. Always. Thank you, Tracy, for becoming a member. It needs to stop, says it unsubscribed me, but then I closed down YouTube and returned it and it was fixed. KP, I have no idea. I don't know. I'm not blaming anybody for it. Thank you. Mandolin Wind just passing through. Say hello, hello, hello. Shane McGowan's liver is here and says, dirty old town. Me, in case File Club became a new member. You don't have to use on a lot. I've said the word before, so it's not the word. Took her own life. But it said that they were concerned for my safety. Like I was threatening to do something to myself. That's what the first email said. And there was a warning put up. I saw it, says Louise. A warning that said what? I said it too many times. I know, because I was reading the papers. Yeah, the bot was very concerned. Kim Baba Louie, welcome. Thanks for becoming a new member. All right, well, I don't know. I mean, we're in the middle of something and now the rest of the stream is gone. So it's like, where do I even start with this? I mean, I showed the picture of the weapon. Right. The fact that we can't use words as intended is crazy, especially if the proper filters were added to make the stream 18 plus. Always. Always. Yeah, usually though, hey, Down the Rabbit Hole News, welcome. Says, hey, love your channel. I've dealt with it with the same issues on YouTube. The review system is flawed. I would never. Careful. Reloading. Also, they want you to say this is educational content. That's what I do in all my streams. I've been doing this for 2 years. I've got hundreds of videos up talking about all kinds of topics, and never ever has it been removed. It's been demonetized, and then I appeal it, and I always win. I've covered Sandra Birchmore. That's right. Sean on your crazy diamond. A lot of creators reported on Ellen yesterday. Oh, interesting. And the video and streams are still up. I think we all have to complain to YouTube. Well, maybe they'll decide after I appeal it that they'll put it back up. I don't know. I'm not going to compare myself to other people or take it personally, but it's annoying. They probably don't like Cutco. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. So why don't you just be careful what you say in the chat? And that's why I saw a lot of comments being deleted. Censorship is alive and well at YouTube. I've already, like, I was doing this for an hour. I don't want to start all the way from the beginning. I don't know. Maybe I got to go through now and redact all these documents. Every time the S word is mentioned in the papers, I got to. Philly has parallels to Norfolk County. I know where to complain, but the point is that I'm here now, and I'm not going to do that now. Right. I can put this on as part 2, but part 1 has disappeared, so nobody can watch part 1. See what I'm saying? That's the problem. So there's that. That happened to somebody else the other day too. What, didn't it? That their stream was taken down and right in the middle? Was it Will? I can't put subtitles to come up during the stream while the stream is live. It doesn't work that way. If you watch on replay, you'll get subtitles for me, but not the other way. Yeah, the world has gone off its rocker. 100%. 100%. I mean, it could happen again. I don't think it had to do with the picture of the weapon. I show pictures of weapons all the time. It's ridiculous. No, did it happen to Emily Baker too? What was the topic? Libra in Seattle. Nobody puts baby in the corner, Tony. Nobody puts Melly in the corner. Nobody. Nobody. All right. All right, we'll try it. If it gets cut off again, it is what it is. This is the original medical examiner's report. And this is where we were. We'll start again from the beginning of the medical examiner's report. Ellen Greenberg, 27 years old, 5'7", 136 pounds, date of death, January 26, 2011, 6:40 p.m. The decedent is a 27-year-old female with a history of anxiety. Per the police investigation, the decedent's live-in fiance returned home from the gym to find the door locked and the security latch on the door. He made several attempts to contact the decedent by yelling into the apartment, sending her a series of text messages, sending her an email, and calling her phone. The fiance ultimately broke into the apartment and found her dead in the kitchen. Multiple wounds in the chest, abdomen, and back of neck. There was a weapon there. It's a Cutco thing that you use to cut your steak with. Okay, I'm gonna be ridiculously benign, okay? You're just gonna have to see if you can interpret what I'm saying. The fiance, all right, where were we? And here's where the wounds were. The chest, abdomen, back of the neck, okay? The thing you use to cut your steak with is present in one of the chest wounds at a depth of 10 centimeters. There's a wound to the right occipital scalp. The wounds are associated injuries to the aortic arch, the upper lobe of the left lung, liver, and the cervical spinal cord at C23 level dorsally. Dorsally means you're the back of your neck. That means she was able to strike, if you believe what they say, the manner of death is, the back of her neck at C23. You know where that is if you have a herniated disc or anything, right? Back of your neck. The spinal cord injury was evaluated by neuropathology. It was concluded that the injury to the spinal cord would not have incapacitated the decedent, but it doesn't say decedent, it just says descent. Therefore, the descent would be able to inflict the wound to her bodies. Really? Really? The descent? There are bilateral hemothoraces, which is collapsed lungs, a hemopericardium, a small collection of subarachnoid blood over the vermis and the base of the right cerebral hemisphere. Multiple contusions on the upper and lower extremities in various stages of resolution, meaning bruises. In various stages of healing, multiple. DNA analysis of the bloodstains on the thing you cut your steak with and the decedent's clothing only match her DNA. Analysis of her laptop provided no additional information. Cause of death, multiple wounds caused by that thing you cut your steak with, and the manner of death was self-inflicted. Here's the autopsy. The autopsy was performed on the body of the decedent at the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office, January 27, 2011. The external examination was started at 9 a.m. and was finished at 11 a.m. She was wearing a gray and purple hooded sweatshirt, gray sweatpants, and brown boots. Okay. Again, can you watch what you say in the chat? Timeouts are coming fast and furious. Fast and furious. 5'7", 136 pounds, white female who appears compatible with the reported age of 27 years. Facial bones have no fractures. The irides are brown. The sclerae are white. The conjunctivae have no petechiae. Okay, petechiae are blood vessels that can burst in your eyes. Anybody who ever had a very intensive labor while birthing and pushed really too hard, you might have had broken blood vessels in your eyes. That can also happen from, if someone puts their hands around your neck and, does that thing to you that I guess I can't say on YouTube either. It also says that there was no fracture of the hyoid bone somewhere in here. No injuries to the tongue. No fractures to the upper and lower extremities. And then they go over the wounds to the chest. There are many. 20 wounds altogether. To the neck, back of the neck, back of the head, and chest. Other injuries: right upper arm has a round 3x4 centimeter contusion. The right forearm has a 3 by 1.5 centimeter area of 3 round contusions. First thing I'm thinking of is fingerprints, somebody grabbing somebody by the arm. That was just me. That's what I thought of. On the forearm, right lower quadrant of the abdomen has a 3 by 3.5 centimeter contusion. The right thigh has a vertical row of round contusions that are 2.5 by 3 centimeters, 4.5 by 3 centimeters, and 5 by 6 centimeters. Above the right knee is a 4.5 by 3 centimeter area of 3 round contusions. So all of these contusions and bruises, all at various stages of healing. Some of them could have been old. And then there's an interior examination. I'll just go through this slowly in case you want to read it yourself and screenshot it for later. Toxicology is negative, except for a little bit of Klonopin. And this is the end of the report. Okay, but the manner of death, again, initially was homicide. And then after a closed door meeting, a couple weeks later, it was changed to self-inflicted. Here's the experts hired by the parents. One of them is Cyril Wecht, and this was completed January 11th, 2012. So a little less than 1 year later. To Dr. Joshua Greenberg. I didn't know her father was a doctor, but apparently he's a doctor. No, you should not say the names of medications. You should not in the chat. And Dr. Wecht, who's a doctor and a lawyer, look at that, MD, JD, hired by Ellen's parents, repeats the same facts that we read earlier, which I'll scroll through so that you can read them if you were not here for the earlier stream that got taken down. And the 911 call was taken down too. So I'm going to have to link the article in the show notes here so that you can go back and find it later and watch it again or listen to it again. The 911 call was, all right, so here, I'll read it to you since if you weren't here, you missed it. Ellen Greenberg, 27 years old, was found by her fiance, dead, Mr. Samuel, but found dead by her fiance, Samuel Goldberg, in their locked apartment on January 26th of 2011. Mr. Goldberg reported that he had left their apartment to go to the gym for the gym in their apartment building at 16:45 that afternoon and returned between 17:15 to 17:30. He stated that he tried to contact the decedent via text message, telephone, and email for approximately 1 hour in attempting to get back in, but he got no response. Confirmed by incoming text and email in decedent's cell phone between 17:32 and 17:54. The 911 call was made at 18:33. The solid bar door guard was broken, consistent with Mr. Goldberg's report of forcing in the door. An apartment security man was reportedly present during Mr. Goldberg's entry. He was briefly instructed to start CPR until he noticed a knife in her chest, was instructed to stop. Medics pronounced at 1840. There was no evidence of a struggle. Valuables were present and nothing was missing in the apartment. The decedent was found supine in the kitchen. That means face up. Valuables were present. Her head and upper body resting against the lower half of the kitchen cabinets. Blood was present on the head, in the hair, and on the neck. Multiple wounds were observed to the front, chest area. And the thing that you cut your steak with was in the front of the chest. And it was 12.5 centimeters in length and 1.5 centimeters wide. The right hand was closed in a loose fist. There was blood on it. No note or anything to indicate that she wanted to take her own life. And the last outgoing call in the decedent's cell phone was for 30 seconds on 1/26/11 at 14:33. The recipient of the telephone call was not identified. So she made a call around 2:33 p.m. And nobody knows to who, not even the experts hired by the parents. That's kind of weird, right? Again, talks about what she was wearing and the Ugg boots. White towel was grasped in her left hand, but not known if there was blood on the towel. And remember, this was done a year later. The decedent was in a committed relationship with Sam Goldberg. They had been together for 3 years and were recently engaged. Her parents had no reservations about their relationship. There's no knowledge of any verbal or physical A. No report of a detailed interrogation of the fiance is available. I haven't seen it. Does anybody know if there is any report, either written or recorded, of any statement by Sam Goldberg? I haven't been able to find one. If you have it or you know that it exists, feel free to send it to me. My email's in the show notes. And then in parentheses, it says, how did the decedent behave before Mr. Goldberg went to the gym for only 30 minutes earlier? Her mother stated that when she spoke with the decedent that morning, that was 7 a.m., they had a pleasant conversation. She gave no indication that something was imminently wrong. Her mother knew that her daughter was struggling with something. Ms. Greenberg was seeing a psychiatrist, Dr. Ellen Berman, and she saw that psychiatrist 3 times in 1 week, January 12th, 17th, and 19th. And I think it was the last stream that got taken down that I said there must have been something going on to see a new psychiatrist with 3 times in 1 week. She was upset and stressed about her job as a school teacher for the District of Philadelphia, where she'd been employed for 3 years. She had expressed that she was overwhelmed with her classroom work. She had been prescribed a couple of medications that I probably can't say on YouTube, I guess. After no success, the doctor prescribed something to help her sleep, 2 things to help her sleep. On the 17th, it was specifically noted she starts thinking about everything else, and she's not in the frame of mind to want to take her own life. I submit to you that the stress of having to submit grades the next day would not be big enough to cause her to want to take her own life. January 19th, the Dr. Berman noted that she was way better. Ms. Greenberg denied any verbal or physical confrontations with her fiance. Also reviewed is a diary-like emailed account, and then something is redacted. Ms. Ellen Greenberg reportedly responded to this close friend's text on January 26th, about 12 p.m., saying, you're getting out early. Philadelphia schools were getting out early on account of the snowstorm. Ms. Greenberg's response was, thank goodness. Well, wait, didn't we just read that her last outgoing text messages was 10 days before? There's so many conflicting reports here. Then this next part is redacted heavily. As published in newspapers on February 1st of 2011, the medical examiner's office ruled the death as a homicide based on the Philadelphia PD's announcement on January 28th. A few days later, the police department backed away, making a statement that the case had not been ruled a homicide and was being investigated as suspicious. However, On February 18th of 2011, which is 18 days later, the police retracted their original ruling and officially declared that the death of Ellen Greenberg had been one of self-inflicted. Philadelphia City Assistant Medical Examiner Marlon Osborne listed multiple wounds as the cause of death. The manner was ruled to be taking one's own life. And again, that was Marlon Osborne. He was the original assistant. He was an assistant medical examiner. And then he was rehomed to Florida. And then it goes on, this independent report goes on to discuss again all of the wounds. 10 to the neck, 8 to the chest, 233 color photographs at the scene and at autopsy, and multiple contusions in various stages of resolution. Were present on the upper and lower extremities, right upper arm, right forearm, right lower abdomen, right thigh, and above the right knee. Medical legal question. What was the most likely manner of death? And this doctor goes on to say that, I'm going to summarize it and not keep it up on the screen. So just trust me, bro. This is what I'm reading from, okay? Oop. That if you were going to take your own life, multiple wounds with a weapon of this nature can rarely happen. Usually it's only one. Taking of your own life by using this kind of method is also rare, with simpler choices being pills or, the thing that Sandra Birchmore died from involving a ligature. Whereas stab wounds to the back are unlikely to be signs of a person taking their own life. I have questions also. If she had all kinds of pills in her drawer in her bedroom, why wouldn't she have chosen that method? And then this independent expert goes on to say that if it was a homicide, that would usually involve multiple wounds to the side, back, or stomach. But in a taking of your own life, it would usually involve wounds to wrists. This doctor also finds that all of the wounds to the back of the neck and head are unlikely to be self-inflicted, and that a person who takes their own life will frequently leave a note. There was no note here. There was also no indication that she had any of these kinds of ideations from her friends or her family or any professional associates and the psychiatrist who had evaluated her. She seemed to be her usual self in the morning. She had a conversation with her mother, and her mother didn't think anything was wrong. And it says here, this expert says, it would be important to find out from the fiance how she behaved barely a half an hour before when he left their apartment, as he claimed, to go to the gym. Also says that a person who's going to take their own life would rarely do this through clothing. And says that this type of method through clothing usually indicates homicide. And then this expert says it is not known if fingerprints on the thing you cut your steak with were taken and examined. Following the review of, and here's the opinion, following the review of all the submitted documents, the results of the autopsy, and the accounts from the investigation, based upon a reasonable degree of medical certainty, it is my professional opinion that the manner of death of Ellen Greenberg is strongly suspicious of someone else doing it. XOXO, Cyril H. Wecht, and that was in 2012. Then there was another expert hired by the parents in 2017. And this was a neuropathologist specializing in forensic medicine by the name of Dr. Wayne Ross. Dr. Ross's report did pathology This is a short report. Okay, so this is what this doctor reviewed. Organ tissue that was inspected on August 3rd, 2016. Scene photographs, the autopsy report, and the autopsy photographs. He says, after review of the above information, I can offer the following opinions to a reasonable degree of medical certainty. There was evidence of a wound which penetrated the cranial cavity and severed the cranial nerves and brain. As a result, she would experience severe pain, cranial nerve dysfunction, and traumatic brain signs and symptoms, including numbness, tingling, irregular heartbeat, and bradycardia, respiratory depression, neurogenic shock, and impaired loss of consciousness, meaning that would have incapacitated her. And she would not have been able to take that same piece of silverware and place it in her chest after that wound to the back of her head, penetrating the cranial cavity. There was also evidence of strangulation. There was a mark over the front of the neck, which was consistent with a fingernail mark. There were multiple bruises under the neck and in the strap muscles over the right side of the neck. The patterns were compatible with a manual strangulation. 3, there were multiple bruises all over the body, some of which were fresh, many of which were older. The patterns were consistent with a repeated beating. That's what this doctor says. And he says the scene findings were indicative of a homicide. Dr. Wayne Ross. And then there is another report from a PhD named Henry Lee, and also co-signed by Elaine Pagliaro. This is dated January of 2018. Again, also hired by Ellen's parents. And they reviewed the photographs, scene photographs. Just trying to see what I'm allowed to read to you here. They also say it's consistent with a homicide based on their review of the scene photographs. Then there's, this is interesting. This is an email from March of 2019. Let me show you this. I think this I can pull up. Oh, let me just redact the word, the S word. Talk amongst yourselves for a second. And this is when the Attorney General became involved in, looks like 2018. So in 2018, the Attorney General's office got involved. Oops. And this is an email, I'm sorry, to a reporter from Joe Grace of the Attorney General's office, dated March 8th, 2019, to Stephanie Farr at phillynews.com. And it says, regarding media request, Ellen Greenberg case. And the body of the email reads as follows. Following the initial 2011 investigation carried out by the Philadelphia Police Department, our office received this case in 2018 on a conflict referral from the Philadelphia DA's office. We conducted our own thorough investigation to determine a manner of death, interviewing the chief medical examiner of Philadelphia and the medical examiner who performed the autopsy, meeting with the family's representatives, and reviewing information they provided to our attorneys, among other steps. Among the additional evidence we reviewed were web searches for methods of committing S. X that out better. Quick death and depression done on Ms. Greenberg's personal computer in the weeks before her death, and text messages between Ms. Greenberg and a family member on the day of her death showing the decedent in serious mental distress. Well, again, didn't they say her last outgoing text message was 10 days before? What am I missing here? Accordingly, we have communicated our findings to the family through its representatives and have closed this investigation. So, Attorney General's office was like, yeah, no, we did our little 5-minute investigation and we believe everything from the first thing. Okay, here's her Google searches. And let's hope that these were not provided by Celebrite, because we know about Celebrite, and we know that Ian Whiffen has just come out on Celebrite's channel and said that nothing regarding timestamping is accurate. And so therefore they changed their entire program to just take away the whole entire timestamp. But let me just redact some of this stuff before we look at the Google searches that are provided here, which really are only from January, looks like December 18th through January 10th of 2011. Okay. Here we go. Mods are kind of like teachers' assistants. They are. I have excellent TAs here. Excellent ones. Okay, so here's an extraction of some sort of Google searches. I'd love to know if it was Celebrite that did these, but I don't know if I'll ever know that. This is from 2011, and here's where it starts. And this is the Google searches that they say that were on Ellen's computer, okay? December 18th, 2010. But again, how accurate are these days and times? I don't really know. She searched for suffocation. My heart breaks for her parents too. And I'm really pissed off that YouTube is not letting me talk about this. That was December 18th at 2:30 in the afternoon. And then on the 18th at 2:36, I mean, at the same time, because look, this is 2:36, and this is also 2:36. There's a Wikipedia article pulled up for S methods. His family took her electronics? That I didn't know. Zimmy. And then there's I don't know, something Turner a CNN video, a crime video regarding S fantasy death and something about a model's death. This is January 3rd. And then we go to January 6th, and she's searching up, I guess, the medications that she's taking, the Z1 and the P1, and side effects and benefits. And then on the 6th, there's also a search for Delaware Pentagon official's death. And then there's also another medication name, looking for how to take it. And weight gain. Maybe she was prescribed something and she started gaining weight. This is all on the date of January 29th. And then there's a depression search, but related to the medication. See? And then she's on the Atkins diet bulletin board about emotional eating and the same medication. Hang on. Mary Montgomery said his lawyer uncle had them for 3 days before handing them into the police. That's interesting. And then on the 9th, 2335, there's an article on inquisitor.com about girl electrocuted to death trying to Twitter in the bathtub. Yeah, Gabby says, hold on, she was looking up John Wheeler's death. Yeah, that's what it was, right? Yep, John Wheeler. There it is. And look at this here too. So on the 9th, all of a sudden it's not military time. So this is 3:13 a.m. She's searching all this stuff between 3:13 a.m. and 3:30 a.m. I don't know. So there's an article here about Twitter girl electrocuted trying to Twitter in the bathtub. That's on the 9th also, but late at night. And then on the 10th, there's a Boston, she goes into boston.com, lifestyle health blog about, doesn't really say. And then on the 10th, quick S work, quick S plus revid. And then there's Australian news search on January 10th. The E word, which is often used for, helping someone take their own life, a dangerous weapon, and a utopian article, religion, theology, painless S. So based on these Google searches, that is part of the reason why they think that she took her own life. Right? Everyone's saying, how do they know it wasn't her boyfriend searching? I don't know. So here's where we go to the appellate decision, because so those were all the investigative reports, the original ones that I could get my hands on. And we're going to learn some stuff in the appellate papers that might shake you up. Okay. So her family started 2 lawsuits. I'm not sure if this was the first one or the second one, but I think that this is the one that was settled in February, because this was an appellate decision, reversing a decision by the trial court and then returning it back to the trial court. And this is wherein Joshua Greenberg and Sandra Greenberg, her parents, Ellen's parents, sued Marlon Osborne. He was the original medical examiner who changed his opinion, and the City of Philadelphia Office of the Medical Examiner. This was a case that was argued in the appellate court November 15th of 2022. And the decision took almost a year to render. That's wild. September 13th, 2023. So what we're going to do here is go through the facts as found by the appellate court rather than the issues of law, because I learned a lot from reading this that I did not learn from looking at the original investigative materials. On the first page of the appellate opinion, it says, while this court is acutely aware of the deeply flawed investigation of the victim's death by the City of Philadelphia Police Department, the PPD, detectives, The City of Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, DAO, and the Medical Examiner's Office, we have no choice under the law but to reverse and remand to the trial court for the entry of judgment in favor of the Medical Examiner's Office. Okay? So they are saying right there, the appellate court, that it was a deeply flawed investigation. Oops. Also, important to note, former Pennsylvania Attorney General and current Governor Josh Shapiro was running the investigation at the time when it was officially ruled a taking of her own life. Do with that information what you will. Even so, in the interest of justice, we believe that providing a detailed review of the victim's death and the ensuing investigation is clearly warranted, with hopes that equity may one day prevail for the victim and her loved ones. And apparently it wasn't. Not yet, anyway. Background: the initial investigation. At approximately 6:30 p.m. on January 26, 2011, the 27-year-old victim was found deceased inside the apartment she shared with her fiancé, Sam Goldberg, in the Manayunk neighborhood of Philadelphia. The victim's body was fully clothed, slumped against the cabinets in a seated position on the kitchen floor. The thing that you cut your steak with was protruding from her chest. She sustained a total of 20 stab wounds, including a severe laceration to the top of her skull, and also those kind of wounds to the back of her neck and spine. The victim also had multiple contusions on the upper and lower extremities in various stages of resolution. The next morning, January 27, 2011, Dr. Osborne, then an assistant medical examiner, performed an autopsy on the victim's body. Dr. Osborne was briefed on the details of the scene by Stephen Olszewski, an investigator with the medical examiner's office, who investigated the scene approximately 2 hours after her body was found. Upon his arrival, and then it says here, footnote 1, Dr. Osborne left the medical examiner's office in 2014 to accept new employment at the Broward County, Florida medical examiner's office. At the time of his testimony, Dr. Osborne was an employee of the Palm Beach County Medical Examiner's Office. So because her parents filed a civil suit, they were allowed to do lots of depositions and conduct discovery. And so much of what is contained in this appellate decision is based on the depositions given by Olszewski and Osborne and others. Upon his arrival in the victim's apartment, Mr. Olszewski found her lifeless body slouched over in a seated position on the kitchen floor. The thing you cut your steak with was not lodged in her chest. Numerous other same kind of wounds had been inflicted in her chest through the zippered shirt and t-shirt that she was wearing. Strewn across the countertop and in the sink were several other kitchen knives, an overturned knife block, and a half-made fruit salad. There it is, the half-made fruit salad. I don't know, I didn't see that in any of the other reports that I have. So if she's in the middle of making fruit salad, does it make you think that all of a sudden she's going to decide, you know what? I'm so mad at the fruit salad that I can't make the fruit salad the way I want that I'm just going to take my own life. Inside a bedroom drawer, Mr. Olszewski recovered the victim's prescription drugs, which included 2 types of anti-anxiety medication and a sleep aid. The medication had been prescribed by Dr. Ellen Berman, a psychiatrist, who saw the patient on 3 occasions in the 2 weeks preceding her death. Mr. Olszewski spoke by telephone with Mrs. Greenberg, who recalled having a pleasant conversation with the victim earlier that morning while both women were on their way to work. This is why I have this question, and I don't know if anybody was able to answer it, and I haven't been able to read the chat, so only if you know the answer, don't guess. Mr. Olszewski, he's the examiner for them. He's the investigator for the medical examiner's office. It doesn't say officer. It doesn't say doctor. What is his experience to be investigating anything for the medical examiner's office? Is he a civilian? Similar to like a coroner who would come to the scene in um, Georgia, or maybe it was North Carolina in the Murdoch case, or the case of Stephen Smith, that the coroner who reports to the scene is a funeral owner, like owns a funeral parlor where you don't need any medical experience or law enforcement training. What is the training of Stephen Olszewski? Does anybody know? Right, the fruit salad. It reminds me of Sandra Birchmore having laundry in the washing machine, right? Hmm. So I don't know. I don't know what his background is, but I'd like to know. Okay. Mr. Olszewski spoke by telephone with Mrs. Greenberg, who recalled having a pleasant conversation with her early that morning while both women were on their way to work. To account for the last hours of the victim's life and the circumstances in which her body was discovered, Mr. Olszewski relayed to Dr. Osborne information that Mr. Goldberg had given to the PPD officers. And this is according to Osborne's deposition. Mr. Goldberg told the officers who responded to the 911 call that he had left the couple's sixth-floor apartment to visit their building's gym at approximately 4:45 p.m. Approximately 45 minutes later, Mr. Goldberg said he returned to the sixth floor but found the apartment door's swing bar lock engaged from the inside. Mr. Goldberg explained that he returned to the building lobby to try to reach the victim via cell phone calls and text messages. Yeah. And there's surveillance video of him going back down to the lobby. But again, why would he go back down to the lobby to try and reach her instead of just standing outside the door and texting her? I don't understand. When approximately 1 hour had passed without a response, Mr. Goldberg said, he decided to enter the apartment by force. Mr. Goldberg stated that he returned to the sixth floor accompanied by a building security guard, later identified as Philip Hanton, and forced open the door. Once inside, Mr. Goldberg discovered the victim seated on the kitchen floor with her head slouched over. Mr. Goldberg recounted that he immediately called 911. In accordance with the emergency operator's instruction, he lifted the victim's slouched head in order to perform CPR. At that moment, Mr. Goldberg discovered the thing you cut your steak with lodged in her chest. Medics arrived and pronounced at 6:40. After taking an initial statement from Mr. Goldberg, the Philadelphia PD officers accompanied him to a police station for further questioning and released him that evening. No summary or other detailed record of that interrogation is included in the record provided to this court, nor was one made available to experts who later investigated the case, whose findings are summarized below. There it is. Zoe says, there you have it. Relying on unsubstantiated narrative as if it's gospel truth. Police need to investigate that victim's narrative further. Victim's narrative. Furthermore, there is no indication in the record that Mr. Hanton or any other building security member or building staff member was ever questioned by law enforcement officials. Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. I went downstairs. I got Mr. Hanton to come back up with me so he could watch me bang the door down. I have so many questions. But let me read on. Astonishingly, in a subsequent written declaration, Mr. Hanton stated that he did not accompany Mr. Goldberg to the sixth floor on the night in question and was not present when Mr. Goldberg entered the apartment. There it is. And it took the parents filing a lawsuit against these people to get the depositions to prove that Goldberg lied. He lied. The police didn't even question the building manager. Right? And the appellate court is making sure to put all of this in the record to show how shoddy the police investigation was. But based on the law, the appellate court had to do what they had to do. But they're saying all of the reasons why perhaps the investigation should be reopened. Dr. Osborne and his supervisor at the medical examiner's office, Dr. Sam Galino, later recalled several omissions from Mr. Olszewski's initial investigation. Notably, Mr. Olszewski failed to report 10 additional wounds in the back of the victim's neck and head, which brought the total number of wounds to 20. One of those wounds was deep enough to rupture the dura mater, a thick membrane that envelops the spine. The top of the victim's scalp also bore a deep incision wound, approximately 6.5 centimeters long. Neither the incision wound nor the additional stab wounds appear to have attracted Mr. Olszewski's attention, an omission that Dr. Osborne characterized as unusual. Hello? Inverted investigations by design. Sometimes when we need a mental health break, we call in Cardi B to say,
Hello.
Hello.
like, really? This is the guy who's sent by the medical examiner's office to do a scene investigation, and he forgets to mention these critical pieces of evidence? I didn't watch the documentary. Is it good? I didn't want to watch it before I covered this case because I didn't want to be influenced by it. Because I've watched the Karen Reed documentaries, and so many of them have so many facts wrong. Dr. Osborne also observed on the victim's body multiple contusions on the upper and lower extremities in various stages of resolution, of which Mr. Olszewski failed to note. Didn't note any of the bruising on her body. Dr. Galino also acknowledged that Mr. Olszewski did not take the temperature of the victim's body, a standard method of determining the time of death. And that wasn't revealed until the deposition of Dr. Galino. Hold on. Good time to remind everybody to hit the like button so you know we don't get shadow banned again. So, didn't take the temperature of Ellen's body, and then Mr. Olszewski did not specify which part of the body or parts of the body that he tested for rigor mortis, which also could have helped to determine exactly when the victim died. Dr. Galino explained in his deposition testimony that rigor mortis tends to be first detected in the small muscles, such as in the jaw or the fingers. Had rigor mortis been present in the victim's legs, Dr. Galino agreed that it would have suggested an earlier time of death than had been assumed. However, Mr. Olszewski only noted that the body was mostly flaccid without specifying which body parts were examined. Evidence that would have provided critical and essential clues into the timing of the victim's death was thus completely overlooked. Dr. Osborne initially concluded that the manner of death of the victim was homicide. As a result of his determination, PPD detectives obtained a search warrant identifying various items in the apartment of evidentiary value in the investigation of a homicide by cutting instrument. When the PPD detectives arrived, pay attention, if your mind has wandered, listen up now. When the Philly Police Department detectives arrived to execute the warrant the day after the victim was found, they discovered that the kitchen had been scoured and a number of the apartment's contents had been removed. The building's property manager, Melisa Ware, later explained that an unnamed Philly Police Department representative had advised her to call a third-party service to have the apartment thoroughly cleaned. What? And that's according to a declaration. We call it an affidavit here in New York of Melisa Ware. I'll read that for you again. The building's property manager, Melisa Ware, later explained that an unnamed Philly PD representative had advised her to call a third-party service to have the apartment thoroughly cleaned. I'm sorry, what? Did somebody just call her and say, "Hi, I'm calling from Philly PD. My name is Sergeant so-and-so. Yeah, we need you to have a crime scene cleaning service come in and clean out that apartment." What? Were they sent by the police department? Because it says here they advised her to call a third-party cleaning service to have the apartment cleaned. They advised her to do it. Somebody could have called her pretending to be Philly PD. I have a lot of questions. There is no evidence in the record that Ms. Ware, the unidentified cleaning service, or the Philly Police Department representative were ever interviewed by investigating authorities. Yeah. So they show up to execute the warrant. The apartment, the crime scene, has been cleaned up. It was never secured, apparently. It was never secured as a crime scene. Because, I mean, I have so many questions. Okay? Because initially it was ruled a homicide. How do they clear the scene? How do they not tape it off? This is almost worse than John O'Keefe. This is an indoor scene. There was no determination of self life taking within the first 24 hours. I'm sorry, what? In fact, the first report done by Osborne said it was homicide. But they were never interviewed. The building manager wasn't interviewed and the cleaning company wasn't interviewed. So we don't know nothing about nothing. In the weeks following the autopsy, Dr. Osborne obtained new information that prompted him to reconsider his initial determination that the victim had died by homicide. First, Dr. Osborne recalled receiving an informal report from Dr. Lucy Rourke Adams, a neuropathologist, following a brief examination of a piece of the victim's spinal tissue. By Dr. Osborne's recollection, Dr. Rourke Adams determined that the victim could have remained sufficiently mobile to inflict further wounds, even after the dura mater surrounding her spinal cord had been pierced. Dr. Osborne acknowledged that Dr. Rourke Adams's observation of the tissue did not include a histologic or microscopic examination. Because Dr. Rourke Adams also did not issue a written report on her observations, Dr. Osborne's recollection is the only summary of her findings in the record. So she didn't issue a written report. She had a conversation with Dr. Osborne and said, "Oh, here's what I found. Maybe you ought to change your report." What? Footnote number 3 says Dr. Rourke Adams later told a journalist that she had no recollection of working on the case and had no invoice or other written record indicating that she had. So who's lying? Who's making stuff up? In reevaluating his initial determination, Dr. Osborne also considered new information about the victim's mental health. Specifically, the victim had recently begun seeing Dr. Berman, who recalled seeing the victim on 3 occasions in the 2 weeks preceding her death. Dr. Berman described the victim as initially presenting with severe anxiety, with which she had been struggling for the previous 2 months. I would say everyone in the chat probably also has severe anxiety. It does not necessarily lead to the taking of one's own life. Severe anxiety is different than major depressive disorder and or S-type ideations, right? We've read enough reports, we've covered enough cases. I have over 30 years experience. analyzing medical records as a civil litigator. And that's what it took. It took civil litigation to get these answers for Ellen's parents, but they're not going to get any more answers because we're going to look at the new report after this, or whatever parts of it we can. Carla said, Melanie, your head just rolled into Wisconsin. I know my head pops off a lot. The victim partially attributed her anxiety to difficulty with work and was considering quitting. When the victim was asked about Mr. Goldberg, Dr. Berman recalled she had nothing but good things to say about him and described him as wonderful. To treat her symptoms, Dr. Berman prescribed the medications that were later recovered from the victim's bedroom drawer. Additionally, Dr. Berman recalled having no concerns that she was in any state of mind to want to self-delete. Approximately 1 month after the autopsy was performed, Dr. Osborne attended a meeting with Dr. Galino, a representative of the district attorney's office, and 2 representatives of the Philly Police Department. In that meeting, the district attorney's office and the Philly Police Department representatives discussed with Dr. Osborne, quote, their interactions with Mr. Goldberg and the statement that Mr. Goldberg made or gave. I don't have a copy of the statement. Dr. Osborne was told that Mr. Goldberg had broken down the apartment door and that a security guard had witnessed it. Well, we just found out that that wasn't true. There was no security guard there. Furthermore, Dr. Osborne was told that an unnamed investigating officer found the door's swing bar lock in a damaged condition consistent with Mr. Goldberg's account of a forced re-entry. It was the first time that Dr. Osborne had been called into a meeting to discuss the manner of death listed on a death certificate. And again, Dr. Osborne has been rehomed to Florida, or was rehomed within 3 years. But for the first time ever, he was called into a closed-door meeting with Philly PD, the DA's office, Dr. Galino, and strong-armed to change the manner of death in his report. I'm going to say it. They tried to do that to Dr. Irene Scorti-Bello, tried to get her to change the death certificate manner of death determination from undetermined to homicide in the murder of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. She wouldn't budge. This medical examiner did. Based on the information provided in the meeting, Dr. Osborne reversed his prior medical opinion and determined that the victim's wounds must have been self-inflicted. Consequently, Dr. Osborne amended the death certificate to indicate that the manner of death was by her own hand. And then it goes on to talk about the expert reports of the experts that Ellen's parents hired, which we looked at before. Dr. Wecht, but was that during the first stream? That was already taken down. That was taken down. I don't remember now. I'm conflating my streams. So Ellen's parents hired a number of experts, including Dr. Wecht, renowned forensic pathologist, Cyril H. Wecht. And he issued a report a year later, which was January 11th, 2012. I think we covered that during the stream. And that it's very rare for these types of wounds to be covered, to be inflicted by a person by themselves. She didn't leave a note, things like that. And then there's a Dr. Ross. They hired a Dr. Ross, a neuropathologist, who concluded that he thought that it was a homicide. Here's a footnote that I highlighted, so there must have been a reason. In his 2020 report, Dr. Ross listed the following reasons for his recommendation. 1, the swing bar lock on the apartment door, which was, quote, disturbed, not broken from the inside. 2, the alleged absence of Mr. Hampton, the security guard, while Mr. Goldberg re-entered the apartment. 3, the constellation of scene findings, which is inconsistent with a taking of one's own life and compatible with being staged. The red stuff, stain patterns, and photographs, which are inconsistent with taking of one's own life. The minimal cast off, which is indicative of homicide. Wounds to the front of the body, which were allegedly inflicted after the head and neck wounds. Also inconsistent with taking one's own life. Bloodstain patterns and void patterns inconsistent with taking one's own life, and no cast off, drip patterns, splash patterns, etc. And that he also thought there was staging. He thought that the towel and the pair of eyeglasses, hold on. The towel in her hand would have prevented her from doing this to the back of her head. Staging was further indicated by minimal stains on the towel. If the towel had been held in the victim's left hand, then only her right hand could have been used for the thing, for the thing. I hate this so much. You know how I hate this. I have no filter. My face has subtitles. Really? One-handed stabbing would be inconsistent with self-infliction. Absence of cut wounds to the hands, which is further inconsistent with taking one's own life. And stab wounds that are generally inconsistent with taking one's own life, which would cause excruciating, if not incapacitating, pain. The availability of means to escape out of the residence prior to the incident, which indicates that she was not trapped with nowhere to go. Lack of previous attempts, lack of mental disorders, the fact that her sole mental condition was an anxiety disorder. The therapy that she received was treatment for anxiety. The failure to administer, let's say, a grape kit to find evidence of binding an SA. Lack of controlled substances. Absence of hesitation wounds on her arms. Hesitation wounds on the head and chest attributable to staging. The fact that she was incapacitated by strangulation. Defensive wounds and binding to wrists. I'm not sure how they got binding, but presence of defensive wounds on the legs, older wounds on her extremities. The crime scene indicates control. The presence of knives in the sink, which are inconsistent with taking one's own life, indicates staging. Lack of scene findings for taking of one's own life. Failure to examine rigor mortis in the feet. Failure to document the wounds to the head and neck in the original medical examiner investigation. Failure to examine subtle bloodstains in the sink, counter, and other areas, which indicate cleanup and staging. Laura Riker is still stuck on the fruit salad. I know. Makes no sense. Oh, they also did not photograph Sam Goldberg. So they failed to photograph the male actor for injuries. So they did not photograph him at all. Parents also hired Dr. Henry Lee, who rendered his report in 2018, and he said that the bloodstain pattern suggests that the victim was in a standing position when she sustained some of her wounds, but in the seated position when sustaining other wounds. Robin Rowe is outraged. Additionally, Dr. Lee noted multiple contusions on the victim's body in various stages of healing, as well as the sheer number of wounds that the victim sustained on the day of her death. In light of these details, Dr. Lee concluded that the number and type of wounds and bloodstain pattern observed are consistent with a homicide scene. And here's a whole bunch of other conclusions that the previous doctor came to. There's about 60 of them. Absence of a brain tumor. And then there's a detective, Scott Eelman, who's a specialist in crime scene reconstruction, did a report for the parents in 2017. Although he declined to make a general determination regarding the manner of the death, he called attention to several conspicuous details in the investigation materials. The bulk of his report is devoted to the bloodstain evidence and the scene photographs, which, in Detective Eelman's view, is inconsistent with the position in which the victim was found. Talking about the flow pattern. And that indicated that her head was in different positions as the blood flowed. And so therefore, she appeared to have died with her head slumped forward. But the movement of blood would be contrary to gravity. In addition to the bloodstain evidence, Detective Eelman examined photographs of the apartment door. While acknowledging some damage to the door component of the swing bar lock, Detective Eelman noted that the door jamb component of the lock did not appear to show any damage. Detective Eelman also noted the absence of debris on the floor from the damaged swing bar lock. He drew attention to several glaring omissions from the investigative materials provided to him. For example, no photographs appear to have been taken of the refrigerator, kitchen pantry, kitchen ceiling, or any portion of wall between the kitchen and the front door. Additionally, Detective Eelman noted the absence of any photographs of Mr. Goldberg or of his footwear or clothing. Fifth expert hired by the parents is BioMX. They are a computational biomechanics and accident reconstruction firm. They analyzed case materials and issued a report on May 12th of 2021. Its analysts determined that the wounds to the victim's head were consistent with focalized, that S word, by an assailant rather than self-infliction. They further determined that the wounds inflicted on her chest and abdomen would result in impaired motor function, precluding repeatable sustained motions of the upper extremities, such as in purposefully stabbing oneself. Finally, the analysts observed the contusions across the victim's body and determined that they were consistent with assailant-oriented trauma and not with self-inflicted injuries. The analysts concluded that the victim's manner of death is not biomechanically consistent with taking her own life. As a result of the additional expert reports, the parents made 2 attempts to persuade government officials to reopen the investigation. Her parents ain't got no quit, let me tell you that. They ain't got no quit. Despite the bad news they got yesterday, I don't think they're going to quit. The first was in 2018, where the Pennsylvania Office of the Attorney General agreed to re-examine the case. We just looked at that email. OAG email to Stephanie Farr. It says here, footnote 5, the parents initially contacted Philadelphia DA Larry Krasner in an effort to reopen the criminal investigation. Since Mr. Krasner had been previously retained by the parents to assist with the investigation, he referred the case to the Attorney General's office to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest. See, that's what a good prosecutor does. You want to avoid even the appearance of impropriety or the appearance of a conflict. And so you referred out right away, unlike they did, which they did not do. Things that they did not do in Norfolk County, Massachusetts, until pressed. Consequently, the Office of the Attorney General conducted its own investigation and concluded that taking of the own life was properly determined to be the manner of the victim's death. Footnote 6 is the email that we read a little bit earlier between the journalist and the Attorney General's office. The second attempt was initiated on June 19th, 2019, when the parents' attorney wrote a letter to Dr. Galino detailing the experts' findings. The letter noted that the experts were unanimous in their opinion that their daughter did not die by her own hand and urged Dr. Galino to undertake a closer examination and a more thorough investigation into her death. In response to the letter, Dr. Galino instructed Dr. Emery, a medical office examiner, who was trained as a neuropathologist, to examine a specimen from the victim's spinal cord. Oh, wait. After they referred to the appellate court, which is the decision we're reading now from 2023, after they referred to that email from the Attorney General to the journalist, in response, the parents assert that long before the Office of the Attorney General obtained access to any information purportedly extracted from the victim's computer, the chain of custody had been broken because the victim's computers were improperly removed from her apartment and in the possession of third parties days after her death. Well, there goes the chain of custody, eh? Somebody said in the chat earlier that his parents had them, but I cannot confirm or deny because I'm sticking to the papers. Yeah, I was thinking that too. Gigi, wouldn't a building manager have a master key to an apartment? Right? Couldn't he open it with the key and then? I guess Sam said he had a key and then he tried to open it, but it was the inside latch, or I don't know if it was a chain or a deadbolt on the inside, like a inside lock, and that's why they had to break it down. But it doesn't matter because the building manager wasn't really with him. And then they go on to talk about Dr. Emery's opinion. And that was the second time that Ellen's parents tried to get the investigation reopened. And it just wasn't. Contrary to Mr. Goldberg's account, Mr. Hampton maintained that he did not escort Mr. Goldberg to the 6th floor, nor was he present when Mr. Goldberg forced open the apartment door. Parents also presented still images from surveillance footage, which confirmed that Mr. Goldberg went up to the apartment alone. Additionally, the parents submitted a photograph of the inside of the apartment door taken on the night of the victim's death. The photograph shows that the screws attaching the swing bar lock to the door were dislodged, but that the door appears to be otherwise undamaged, consistent with Dr. Ross's and Detective Eelman's analyses. And so the case got sent back to the trial court by the appeals court, and then this case wound up settling in February of 2025 for some money and for the medical examiner's office agreeing to take a second look and do a redo of the autopsy report to see if they would change their manner of death. And surprise, surprise, the medical examiner's office is sticking to their opinion that Ellen Greenberg took her own life. And that's their opinion, and they're sticking to it. Nobody's ever been investigated. No evidence was ever collected. I have so many questions. There's a 32-page report, which I'm going to link to this stream so you can read the whole entire thing yourself. But there's a couple of new pieces of information that came out of this new 32-page report. One of which is that 3 more stab wounds were found. So now there's a total of 23. And there are 20 additional contusions to Ellen's body. For now, a total of, I don't know what, over 30? And yet it's still being considered a taking of her own life. Let's just give me a moment to rest my voice and listen to what CBS Philadelphia had to say about this yesterday. Let me take this down, put this back up.
Also have a major development here on a story that we have been covering for nearly 15 long years. Ellen Greenberg's suspicious death has again been ruled a suicide.
Yeah, investigative reporter Liz Crawford has looked over the medical examiner's report, and she has the latest details. Liz.
Well, guys, the Greenberg family is outraged, and their attorney called the report an embarrassment. So let me catch you up on how we got here. Ellen Greenberg's murder was ruled a suicide in 2011 after her fiancé broke into her Manayunk apartment and found her with more than 20 stab wounds. But after an autopsy, a medical examiner changed the finding from suicide to homicide. Then, at a meeting months later between police and the medical examiner's office, the ruling was amended again, with suicide being the cause of death. Ellen Greenberg's parents have long believed their daughter was murdered, and after hiring independent experts who confirmed that, their attorney called the incident a botched police investigation and cover-up. They went on to sue the city, and part of the settlement reached earlier this year required the city to re-examine her death. That brings us to today, a 32-page report signed just 3 days ago. In it, the chief medical examiner of Philadelphia says, while the distribution of injuries is admittedly unusual, the fact remains that Ellen would be capable of inflicting these injuries herself. The report also notes that she was a young woman suffering from anxiety. In a statement, the attorney for Greenberg's family said in part, Ellen's family just wanted the truth. It is clear the truth will not come from Philadelphia's law enforcement machinery. Though Ellen's city turned its back on her, we will continue through other avenues to get justice for her murder by any means necessary. Now, there is a hearing scheduled for tomorrow between the city and the Greenbergs related to the ongoing lawsuit. The current status of that hearing is unclear.
All right, Liz, thank you for that update. We continue to ask questions and hold the powerful accountable. As new developments emerge, we'll share them with you right here and online at cbsphiladelphia.com.
So the parents did settle the lawsuit. The lawsuit was settled. I saw a question fly by about that. Here's the medical examiner's new report, which I will link to this video so that you can read it for yourself if you so choose. And StreamYard is now acting up. Okay, but we don't need any audio right now, so I think we're okay. Anxiety, really? Who doesn't have anxiety? And here is an article yesterday from NBC 10 in Philadelphia. Medical examiner's report stands by ruling in Ellen Greenberg's death as by her own hand. The mystery surrounding what happened to 27-year-old Philadelphia teacher has been at the center of debate in the legal system for years. And now there's another twist in the story. The death of Ellen Greenberg was originally ruled as a homicide in January 2011, but later switched to taking her own life. NBC 10 obtained the 32-page document on Monday, October 13th, and in the final paragraph, the medical examiner states that Ellen Greenberg's death is best classified as taking her own life. Best classified. Doesn't say that it's absolutely 100%, but best classified. And isn't it ironic, don't you think? A little too ironic that the exact same medical examiner's office reviewed their own work from the original, who did the original autopsy report. And even Dr. Osborne has since reversed his position. He's done a complete 180. And in a declaration, he says he does not think that she took her own life, that he thinks it's a homicide. He has changed his opinion after he was rehomed to Florida. And so, like the fox guarding the hen house, it's the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office reviewing the original Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office report from 2011, all the way now in 2025. And so I don't know how the medical examiner's office who did the first report can, as it says in the first paragraph here, be asked to conduct an independent and unbiased review of all materials relating to the death of Ellen Greenberg when they were the ones who did the first investigation and report. Seems a little sus, right? This review was conducted independently by the undersigned. The medical examiner is Lindsay Simon. And she reviewed all kinds of things and stuff. She found some more things and stuff. I'm going to link this entire report below for you. But suffice to say that they found, like I told you, more bruising, more stab wounds, which indicates to me, maybe, just maybe, yeah, why didn't they send it to another state? This new review of Greenberg's autopsy report from the medical examiner was part of an agreement the city reached with her parents earlier in 2025 in an effort to settle two of their lawsuits. In her report, the chief ME, Lindsay Simon, says that she based her determination on several factors, including Greenberg's struggle with anxiety. Anxiety? Greenberg was discovered by her fiance on their kitchen floor with 23 stab wounds. Now there's 3 more. Dr. Simon noted that the distribution of wounds is admittedly unusual, though she says the evidence she reviewed shows Greenberg would be capable of administering them herself, and adding that many of the injuries were hesitation wounds. Dr. Simon also says that there was no DNA detected from her fiance or anyone else on the knife, and wrote that his statement and timeline matches things like text messages, phone logs, surveillance videos, and that there was no evidence that she was in an abusive relationship. Well, except for all of those healing bruises. Dr. Simon notes in the review there is no evidence to support that anyone else was inside her apartment on the day that Greenberg died. Well, they didn't do an investigation. So this means the city of Philadelphia is standing by its 2011 ruling. If Greenberg's cause of death was switched to homicide or undetermined, it would have triggered a police investigation. That's why this is so important. Greenberg's parents, their attorneys, and other experts insist that Ellen was murdered in her Manayunk apartment in 2011. And the attorney for the Greenberg family, Joe Pedraza, was not happy. And here's what he says. I'm not shocked by her conclusion that it is a taking of her own life, since the city has doubled down, tripled down on that over the years I've been involved in the case. But I am very troubled by the contents of the report. As far as I'm concerned, the entire document is trite. Joe Pedraza, the Greenberg family attorney, told NBC 10, it's just a horrendous sabotage and attack on Ellen's personality based on this alleged anxiety condition. The medical examiner's office is scheduled to go before a Philadelphia judge on Tuesday, October 14th, to officially release their findings of this new review. And that is what the Zoom hearing is about at 1 o'clock today. Let's go to the chat and see what you guys have to say about this. those of you who knew about the case, those of you who are unfamiliar with the case. And we have both kinds of people here. Everyone, reminder, hit the like button because, the stream I first started doing got taken down because they thought that I was promoting people taking their own life, and they were worried for my safety. And so the first entire hour of this topic was taken down by YouTube. Thank you, Kimberly, for being here for 5 months. Kita, I covered that earlier. Tracy, thank you. Warwick, Becky says, Eagles at the Sphere was incredible. Wizard of Oz next. Oh, they're doing Wizard of Oz at the Sphere too? Thanks for, thanks. Jen says the detectives involved were corrupt. Nordo in jail for SA. I can send you the info. Sure, happy to look at it. Can't cover it today, but I'm sure we'll be covering this more in the future. Peachy Puff Pants became a member. Welcome. Jen says, and Sam's uncle was a powerful attorney in Philly. Didn't he call his uncle like before the police got there? Didn't he make some phone calls to like his uncle and someone else in his family who's a lawyer? I thought I read that somewhere. Pamela Campbell, how could anyone harm her when the door was latched? That's a good question. That's a good question. But again, there's some inconsistencies in his statement. There's some inconsistencies in his statement about who was with him when he broke the door down. So could that be a lie? I don't know. If you believe what he says, but if you don't believe what he says, and there's no record of his statement anywhere or his police interview. Hold on. Or I haven't seen it anyway. Perhaps the door wasn't latched. Perhaps he latched it from the inside, or someone latched it from the inside and then pulled it open to make it look like it was busted down from the outside. I don't know. Lots of possibilities, though. Sandy Dad says, new cup of water, Pennsylvania law water in a cup. I have no idea what you're talking about, but thanks for your $2 super chat. Norman says the first 30 seconds of the 911 call was an alibi and the fact that the victim had 23 wounds, 3 of which are on the back side. There's a lot more than 3 on the back side. Tells me everything I need to hear about. Sam, any pictures of the kitchen? Any pictures of the kitchen kicked-in door? Yes, there were some pictures of the kicked-in door, but again, they didn't show any debris on the floor where the door would have been pushed open. And this is, so I didn't get to that chat earlier, Norman, but I think we read about that in the appellate decision. Cal Lily says, thank you for all your hard work today, darling. We all love you so much. Thanks for your hard work today. We all love you so much. Thank you, Cal Lily, for your very generous 20. Cajun Butterfly. Gavin Fish knows the family well. He did a deep dive, has all the info on his YouTube channel. He may allow you to use some of his info. Actually, I went to his channel yesterday to look for the medical examiner's new report, and it was behind a paywall. It was only for Patreon members. And so I was able to find it this morning because it was posted by NBC 10. So, I mean, he can do whatever he wants, but I don't put content behind a paywall. Debbie says, I sent you an email with the Zoom link. I have it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Debbie. Thank you very much. Linda Puppy Lover, thank you for your super sticker. And most blessed Gigi says, they unsubscribed me again. I'm back. Excellent. I'm glad. Hit the button. They've been doing that to people on many channels, not just over here. And ain't gonna quit. They changed my card 4 times. I know it's not you. I don't know. Your credit card? I don't know. Nothing's happening to me. I'm not a victim. Thank you, Gigi. Thank you for feeling sorry for me, but I don't consider myself to be a victim. YouTube has rules. I guess they didn't like me talking about it, but I'm back and I'm not shutting up. And thank you, Gigi, for becoming a member. Mike B from the 413 says 30 years in EMS. Tell me women don't disfigure to self-delete. Yes, right. Pills. Yeah. Thank you, Mike B from the 413, for chiming in on that with your 30 years experience as an EMT. Most blessed Gigi on Earth says, cannot say I have ever been ticked off at a fruit salad, not even a fruit cake. Thanks, Gigi, for your 5. In Linda Puppy Lover. I've heard people sue in order to get answers from doctors, law enforcement, etc. by depositions. That's why Melisa Rivers sued the clinic, right? Well, that brings me to the O'Keeffes. Do you think the O'Keeffes are suing to get answers or revenge or money? I mean, it'd be great if they sued to get answers, but if they sued to get answers, they would have sued everybody who was in the house at 34 Fairview the night that John O'Keefe was murdered. In my opinion. And you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Thank you, Linda. Mavka says, I'm 99% sure I can set one of those latches from the outside. Very interesting. And Technical Out says, I've been following this case from the jump with a civil trial lawyer's mind. I'll email you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Tell him the guy was locked out of the apartment. Right. Sullied intent folder says the whole door frame should have been damaged. Right. You guys are thinking outside the box. See? Thinking outside the box. And I can see by your comments that you are. Just another snark in the tank says, I wouldn't want to leave a mess like that, knowing someone else would have to clean it up. Interesting. Sarah without an H says, if no one was with him when he kicked the door in, how do we know that the bar was actually latched when he kicked it in? Right. And how come there's no actual statement from him? How come there's no recorded statement? Do they exist? I don't know. Here's the door latch photos as sent to me by Shari. Hang on. Hold, please. Take from these what you will. Here's one. It's like a hotel, it's like a hotel door, right? That's swing latch. And oops. Oh, well, these are watermarked Gavin fish, so I'm not gonna, use them because I don't feel like getting stricken. But you can see how there's minimal damage around this thing here. Minimal, see? Interesting. And here's the other picture. What say you? Right. Did the neighbor across from him see him bust the door in? The neighbors said apparently there was no yelling. They didn't hear any commotion. I don't know. I have a lot of questions, but I do not think that this was, at the very least, it should have been ruled undetermined, right? But maybe they didn't want a police investigation into this for whatever reason. Like, it's wild. And then they go back the next day and then everything is cleaned up. And then the building manager said she got a call from the Philly PD, but doesn't know who called her and said, hire a cleaning company to come and clean up the apartment. That's insane. The whole thing is insane. That damage is not accurate to busting a door open, says Raider Kev. Right. Or what about if it was pulled from the inside? Says Phases Aaliyah. And also, me, Mary D. He just latched it from the inside and pulled it. Team Brittany says he wanted people to believe, in my opinion, that she locked it from the inside. Right. But why would she lock it from the inside if she knew he was coming back? He just went to the gym, right? Melinda said he didn't latch that door while his partner went down to the gym unless she didn't want him coming back in. I have a lot of questions. They're not going to be answered for me today. Thank you, Sandy Dad, for buying me a matcha latte. You're awesome. All right. Anything else before we wrap here? Who knows what else could drop today? Who knows? Maybe we'll be back, but you're going to want to make sure you're subscribed and you have all your notifications set and everything such as like that, so that if we do have something to cover later, you can come back and watch it. And as always, we'll be back tomorrow. Topic undetermined as of right now. But what I want to do with you is I want to go over the SJC argument from this morning regarding the Commonwealth of Massachusetts versus Dennis Bateman, the guy who may have been in jail for prison for a very long time. I think his conviction was, I can't remember now, very long time ago. But it appears that the Commonwealth may have concealed evidence, not turned evidence over, edited audio recordings of certain witness statements. And based on the SJC's reaction today, because I was listening to it before I came on here, you might be shocked. But I have to wait for them to upload it to YouTube before I can go over it. So I do want to go over that with you. We ride at dawn. Thanks for your 5. Says, me and a buddy kicked in a side latch to get into his house a year ago, and we had to completely repair the door jamb. Just saying. Thank you for your 5. And Freak Kelsey Fitzsimmons 2025 says, it feels like this guy knows something or was owed a big favor. Has anyone looked deeper into him? I haven't. It's my first time covering this case, but I know you guys like to do the deep dives, and you like to call me Alice, get down that rabbit hole. And so there's that. Tracy gifted 5 memberships. Tracy 7, thank you very much. Steedman, I'm sorry, I'm blind. Tracy Steedman gifted 5. Welcome to the 5 who are gifted. And Free Radical says, love you, Melanie. Thank you. I'm going to put up a link to the Daily Mail article right now in this description so that you can go and listen to the 911 call again. You can also watch the surveillance video of Sam in the lobby when he comes out of the gym and when he goes back into the elevator by himself, both of which are contained in the Daily Mail article. All right, I'm going to do it right now so I don't forget. And then I'm also going to link the new medical examiner's report, which is contained in the Philadelphia 10 article, so that you can have some homework if you want. It's 32 pages. Happy reading. There. And they are both there. And so I don't know if you're outraged, but I find this to be a bit outrageous. I find it to be, will Ellen's parents ever get justice for Ellen? It doesn't seem like it. Thank you for your article, for your 10. I love you more. I love you more. The show notes that I had were on the earlier video that YouTube just took down because they were afraid for my safety. Apparently, they were afraid for my safety. All right, you guys, stay safe out there because it's scary. Thank you, moderators, because this was a hard one to cover today because I saw like a million timeouts and a million people not following the very, very, very simple rules. So, it is what we got to do. We got to do. Stay cool, stay kind, stay classy. I'm going to see you guys real soon because if I don't see you soon, I'm going to die. All right, peace out, you guys. Stay safe out there. Bye. Peace.